It's May 12, 2024, a fine Sunday in the Makos household, and in today's podcast episode, we are talking about podcasting, filmmaking, YouTube, web publishing, and a little bit of gambling. I'll explain why I will not do an unscripted podcast episode again, how this podcast will attract new subscribers to my newsletter, how I'm planning my videos even when I'm traveling to Greek islands with the family, what parts of videos people skip when watching, so you should not focus on those, what's my plan A and B while trying to recover my website from Google updates, how you know artificial intelligence didn't create this podcast episode, and why every page in our websites can be a lead magnet for people to subscribe to our newsletter. Finally, I'll share how I bet on the Eurovision Song Contest this month. So that's plenty to talk about. Let's begin. This week we got back from Skiros after staying for 7 days in our summer house on the Greek island for Easter. Normally I would get very excited to visit the island, especially in springtime when the grass is green and the flowers are blossoming. But this year it was different, as anxiety didn't allow me to enjoy the moments we spent with the family there. My mind was always occupied with the problems my web publishing business is facing, and I kept checking traffic data on Google Analytics all the time. All this made my stay less pleasant, and whenever I felt just a bit better, I tried to stay creative. That's how I ended up recording a podcast episode at our house's porch on Easter Day, right after lunch. I tried something new in that episode. I didn't script it. But podcasts aren't meant to be scripted after all. Well, I do script these, as I find it more enjoyable and less stressful. Not to mention, I'm not worried I'll say anything weird that I will have to cut in the editing and, disrupt the flow of the episode. I also think it makes listening to the podcast more valuable, as there isn't so much fluff into it. Well, there is, but compared to me trying to find the words to express myself for a minute, doesn't come across as a sign of appreciating your time spent listening to this. Yet, I had to try it out after reading a long comment in one of my recent videos on YouTube. I took the advice and, perhaps due to being in good mood at the time, I decided to act on it. Was it worth it? For sure. I learned a few things, like it doesn't take me much longer to edit the episode compared to a scripted episode. On the other hand though, I wasn't satisfied with the end result, and that's the whole point. I must be happy with what I produce, with what I publish. This podcast will get to live online forever. Yes, maybe that specific episode won't make a difference in a year, and no one will probably hear of that again in the future. But as a perfectionist, I need to know I produce the best content I can produce now. By doing the work, I know I'll improve, and I look back at these episodes, even these scripted ones, and I will cringe on the quality or my presentation on camera. But we all have to start from somewhere. So while I know I won't be happy with this very episode in a few months, despite me trying my best now, I'm already unhappy with the quality of that last episode. So at least I need my productions to be on par with my expectations for a little while. And that free-rolling episode didn't live up to my standards. So for the time being, I won't be repeating the experiment, because after all, it was an experiment. For now, my current process is to write this script freely for me to read aloud in front of the camera. I used to have bullet points, headings, and the likes, but not anymore. I'm writing as if I'm speaking to you. No structure, no fancy paragraphs, no short or long lines, no writing plan or even an outline. I will not even reread it to check for syntax mistakes. I'm just correcting words that Grammarly underlines for me as I'm typing this. It's just me putting the words that come into my mind on electronic paper. And now I'm reading these lines to you. But rest assured, it's an unfiltered way of me talking to you. Later, I'll turn the script into a much more brief but comprehensive blog post. And that will become my newsletter's next issue. No fluff, No unnecessary words. Straight to the point. This podcast may turn out to be 3,000 words long or more, but the letter I will send to my newsletter subscribers will be 1,000 words max. And that's because I must make a compelling offer to them. I ask them for their email address. In return, they get to see inside my mind without spending half an hour of their time. It will take them only 5 minutes to read everything I say here. The podcast achieves the same thing, but taking more of your time. There is fluff. This right here is fluff, a scripted fluff. But if you are like me, you enjoy listening to podcasts, despite of all the fluffing. You get to hear the creator himself. And the script just makes the podcast a bit more structured. I'm certainly not all over the place in this episode compared to the last one. Do I come across as less authentic with this script? Maybe. But I know I'll be more proud of this episode than the unscripted one. Still, I had to try it while I was feeling better, because during the last 2 months, my anxiety has skyrocketed. I'm planning on talking of that feeling in an upcoming video. I have already shot the interview part while on Skiros Island. Now, let me take you through of how that video is coming together, because I always wondered how the pre-planning process of making a video looks like. And maybe you care too to find out how I am making these videos on YouTube. So when you go to Skiros, I didn't have a plan of what kind of video I would make. Of course, I could choose to not make any video, but I'm sure you know that when traveling, we get inspired and motivated to take more photos and videos than when we live our regular life. So I knew I would film a lot. I just didn't know the story. The story that I would tell once we got back. And I didn't want to tell the story from here, from our home. I wanted to tell it having Skiros in the background. That meant that I had to film the interview while we were at Skiros. And that meant I needed to find the story a day before we left so that I had time to film the interview. Inspiration did hit a day before our departure. I hadn't planned it. I just went for a walk carrying my cameras, and at some point I sat down and said a few lines on camera. That was it. I now had the topic, the story that I was about to tell, and it had to make sense with whatever I had already filmed. Because, you see, if I decided to tell a story that I had no footage of, the video would end up becoming a talking head video. Like a podcast. The story had to align with the video clips I had saved in my hard drives during that week. I had shot a lot of sunrises. I had shot a few scenes of my family, of me appreciating nature, and most importantly, of me overthinking and walking up and down because of my stress. Well, the story would be exactly that. The story would be about me not enjoying my stay in Skiros because of my severe anxiety. You don't have to look for a story in your videos. Life is giving you plenty of stories. You just have to pick one. And as long as you capture moments as life unfolds, you just need to narrate the story. I sat down and recorded the interview on Wednesday, one day before we flew back home. I didn't have my lighting set up with me, so I depended on sunlight. It was already afternoon, and by the time the sun set, I had just finished the interview. I know I had the most important part for my video. Me telling the story on camera. What remains is to put together the footage I had shot to complete the puzzle. The main piece is the interview. It's what makes the story move forward. The scenes and the mini stories I had shot during our stay will be the necessary puzzle pieces for the video to look like a proper documentary film and not like a talking head video. Now that I mentioned it, I noticed that talking head parts of videos are watched less. Back in April, I shared on X that I hate making guesses about what people enjoy in videos, and that all I did to find out what people are interested in was to check out the video player's peaks and valleys. You know, when you are watching a video and you scroll through it, YouTube shows a graph when you hover the mouse over the playhead, showing what part of the video people watch the most. I went and checked a few videos of some of my favorite video creators. Vloggers, photographers, everyday people, entrepreneurs, you name it. I found out that people don't watch every minute of the videos, even of very popular creators I admire the most. I was surprised to see, for example, that Casey Neistat's videos, which I watched from beginning to the end without skipping a second, had peaks and valleys. And peaks, that is parts of the video that people skip to, were shots filmed outside. What do I make of this? That viewers, even of very popular creators, skip parts of the videos where the creator is talking to the camera, and that videos shot outside in the real world make them stop skipping. So all that makes sense to me to include as much footage shot outside as possible. And traveling to Skiros and living in a summer house surrounded by nature offered that to me last week. That all makes me feel so much better that I have chosen to make documentary-styled videos, since it seems they will make people more compelling to watch. Another creator that I've talked about in the past makes silent videos. If you check her skipping graph, for lack of better word, you'll notice that her viewers don't skip that much. I was shocked. She's less popular than other creators I studied, yet people seem to stick around throughout her videos until the end. Or, at the very least, skip to many parts during her video, compared to Casey's, who's been a huge influence for me being on YouTube. Let me give you an example. Casey is known to film a lot outside. He's known to make very high quality vlogs with fantastic storytelling. He does that by getting a lot of coverage, a lot of shot angles of what he's up to. He's not telling you his story, he's showing it to you. That's why he's successful. Yet, he's talking to the camera quite often, since he's vlogging, but I never felt the urge to skip that part because he's filming himself outside. Still, when I check his videos, people are watching the first 20 seconds and then they skip to 2 or 3 other parts of his videos. These parts are usually drone shots or something unique is happening. These parts are never him talking to the camera. And I have to repeat myself here that Casey isn't the common talking head guy on YouTube. Now let's see another example. Life of Riza is a channel that gained popularity lately. Her work is a lot more scripted, planned videos with storyboards and cinematic shots. Yet the graph is full of peaks, peaks. People skip to 10 or 20 other parts of her videos. So when they get bored, there are many opportunities for them to skip to another part instead of jumping to another video, hurting her video's engagement. And now let's see the silent video I told you before. The channel is called Her 82 Square Meters. She is a Vietnamese mother living with her family in a cottage in the German countryside. Both she and her husband were freelancers in the creative world, so they have experience in creating nice-looking videos. Now combine this. Good cameras, filmmaking experience, and countryside. Her videos are full of amazing shots, and she never speaks to the camera. Instead, she tells a story with English captions, which she auto-translates to 30 or more languages for the algorithm. But that's not the point here. The point is that, again, like Riza's channel, people skip to many parts of her video. So maybe it isn't talking heads that make viewers jump around the video. It's just nice imagery. Doesn't that make sense? Why are we watching videos? For listening to a story? No. For reading a story? Again, no. For watching a story. So as creators, we must show a story, not tell it. Ever since I did this mini research of mine, I'm much more willing to film real life. I know when the time comes and use the footage, it will make for yet another part of my video for people to skip to and not leave my video. So, enough about filmmaking and making videos. Let's move to web publishing stuff and the current state of Google updates. since many of new subscribers have joined my channel after watching my recent videos on how I'm dealing with those updates. I'm happy to report that the decline in traffic stopped. And in fact, I managed to bring that up a bit. Back in March, when I began dealing with the issue, traffic was about 60% down year over year. On April 15, traffic began improving month over month, and in May, traffic is about 30% down compared to 2023. So there's definitely improvement. I'm not sure if that was due to me updating content or Google coming up with more updates in the meantime. As far as I can tell, the March core update completed in mid-April, and since then, there hasn't been another major one. Last Sunday, SEO industry experts and Google itself let us know that they would issue another update about big websites taking advantage of their reputation and creating content outside their expertise just for ranking purposes. But I'm not sure if that had any effect or if it did take place. Small publishers are still struggling with their sites, and even big creators are shifting their business models, especially if they were used to rely on Google traffic. Some are taking their business to YouTube and other social media for attracting audience. Some are creating their own products. Some start new websites from scratch, copying their existing content and starting over. And some are investing in their personal brand. I do the last one, while I'm updating content on the main website. So, my plan has a plan A and a plan B currently. Plan A is focusing on the website that brings most of my revenue. That website is in the education space, and its traffic has been declining constantly since last October, when the helpful content update came up. Since March, I'm updating existing content and do not create new one. There are 1,000 posts published on that website, which is somewhat evergreen, meaning people will always search for it. However, the content itself needs updating on a yearly basis. I used to not do that. I published the articles and never edited them again. Now, I go through each one, updating with new data, statistics, and content. I delete generic images that I had added, which, by the way, I had paid for and got from agencies such as Shutterstock and Deposit Photos, and create my own custom illustrations. I cut down any fluff, remove blocks of text that don't add any useful information, and no longer focus on the article's word length, which used to be the goal for publishers in order to keep visitors on site for longer and for loading more advertisements. There are a few more things that are going on, which I'll talk in a future video in more detail, on how I try to recover my website from Google updates. Well, that's my plan A. My plan B is building on my personal brand, in case you hadn't realized that. I make YouTube videos. I'm tweeting and replying on X almost daily. I try to keep my Facebook page updated. I'm producing podcasts. I send a newsletter and I write blog posts that are search engine optimized. Yes, optimized for Google search engine. Again, I cannot ignore Google. It's a great source of traffic. But I won't make the same mistake I made to my educational website to rely only on SEO and Google. A mistake is no longer a mistake if you make it twice. A mistake is only a mistake if you learn from it and never repeat that. I created my blog in 2005 to share my thoughts freely with no oversight. But I never expected a search engine to dictate how or what I write about. I wanted a canvas, which is my blog, and SEO gave me a rulebook. Writing feels like doing math with words now. Anyway, so I do create content for Google, but at the same time, that content goes to X, YouTube, podcast platforms, and even Pinterest. There are rumors that having a social following helped publishers survive the recent Google updates. Although I have my doubts on that, as I've seen websites with big followings get destroyed, it feels nice to get in touch with real people, especially in the modern world of artificial intelligence, where we won't know if what we are looking at is real or not. And a personal brand achieves that. A personal brand makes you stand out in the AI world because you are a real person, because I am a real person, and it's not an AI avatar talking to you in this podcast, I could tell AI to come up with a script. I would make an AI avatar based on me to come on stage and read the script as I'm doing right now. And at some point, you won't know the difference between me as a human and my AI avatar. And that sounds scary. So how do you know I'm the real Jim that I'm talking to you? Because you know I wrote the script because of the mistakes I make, because of the tone I'm using, because of the fluff I have added. AI cannot do that. It's too perfect for that. And while it can create an AI Jim, it cannot film this talking head in my home or at Skiros. It cannot show you real life as I can. So I'm investing on my personal brand double time in my plan B. I hope both plans work out in the end and don't have to check my Google Analytics data 50 times a day. This time things look promising for both plans. My education website has begun ranking for more keywords after 6 months of losing 70% of its ranked keywords. And my personal brand is also gaining in Google rankings, while my X posts are getting more exposure and my YouTube channel is attracting viewers that turn into subscribers. So I must be doing something right. While I was in Skiros, other web publishers have shared my videos on X, praising their cinema quality. Finally, I'm able to put to use everything I learned about filmmaking ever since I got a camera 10 years ago and create meaningful content that is interesting and relatable to people. If only it goes for a more positive thing and not for something that our livelihood depends on. But maybe that's why it attracts so much attention. Hard times make for good stories. People love drama. People also love easy money, and gambling seems like easy money. But I'm here to tell you that gambling is anything but easy money. If you bet on Eurovision Song Contest and won, you might think it's easy money. But in the long run, making money from gambling is very hard. And winning a single bet doesn't mean you can consider gambling an income stream. Likewise, me losing money on Croatia this year doesn't mean my bet was a mistake. The mistake would have been if I had taken the tempting offer by bookmakers called cash out. Because, you see, cash out is another way betting operators make money from panders like me. So let me explain what happened. I follow Roy on X from my gambling years, 2 decades ago. Roy used to share a few betting tips occasionally. These tips are quite unique. Roy is a specialist in sports like skiing, Formula 1, and TV reality shows and song contests. So whenever I come across his tips on X, I consider following his advice. I don't always follow his tips, but his comment on this year's Eurovision convinced me to consider betting on Croatia to win. According to him, odds over 4-1 seem to have value. And identifying mispriced odds is how you win in betting, and it's called value betting. It's like betting on better than even odds on a coin flip. So, a week before Eurovision main competition, I bet on Croatia at various odds, the best of which were 3.5-1. On the day of the contest, Croatia odds had shortened below evens. The bookmaker offered me to cash out my bet, securing profit before the contest began. But in fact, that's another bet they asked me to make, and I don't know if that bet has value. Even worse, I bet the cash out odds are never mispriced. Not only that, but I was offered less than what the shortened odds implied. Although the decimal odds had shortened from 4.5 down to 1.8, I was offered a profit of less than double my money. That would seem a fair deal if the odds had shortened from 4.5 to 2.25. But given the odds were far below that, I felt the cash out option was unfair. And you know what? The betting operator can never offer me a fair price for cash out for the simple reason that when he's offering 1.8 odds, the real odds are more like than 1.9. Otherwise, the bookmaking business won't be making money and would go bankrupt. Anyway, maybe I'll come back to this topic in a future episode. But for now, remember this if you ever get tempted to cash out your bet when odds shorten. Never take the cash out offer. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I have to tell you another short story in web publishing realm. See? I said realm. I could have said landscape, but then you would know it was the AI that wrote this. Anyway, in my previous letter, I shared a website that I got much inspiration from. One of the things that let me do was to create a contact page for my blog again. I used to have one, then removed it, since I moved my blog to Ghost, and now I recreated one. I added a touch of humor in there and didn't think again of that. Until this Monday, when a new visitor subscribed to my newsletter via my contact page. Coming from Nevada, USA, he not only decided to subscribe to my newsletter via my newly created contact page, but he also came from Bing's search engine. Normally, I would expect people to find my blog through Google, read a few articles, and decide if my content is valuable enough to share their email address with me. But this guy came from Bing and decided to subscribe on a page that I didn't have for years. So if you are into making and publishing websites, never underestimate other traffic sources and pages that seem mundane to you. Of course, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to share my findings with you. How you lagged on my report is for you to decide. And I won't tell you to subscribe to my YouTube channel even after watching or listening to this podcast for more than half an hour, because I know you'll be back for more.